My family missed the biggest day of my life. No text, no call, not even a quick sorry. Just complete silence, the kind that echoes in your chest and makes you realize where you really stand. So when the headlines started running about my company's worth, when my name began trending across business sites, I wasn't expecting anything from them. But then my phone buzzed with a message from my dad. Short and formal, like a business meeting. Family dinner at 6 p.m. Need to discuss something urgent. I stared at those words glowing on my screen and felt something click inside me. Not excitement, not nervousness, something sharper. Because I knew this wasn't about making things right between us. This was the start of their downfall. I was sitting in my downtown office when that text came through. The city lights sparkled outside my window like scattered diamonds across black fabric. Reports covered my desk, plans for expansion, investor proposals, contract updates. But for once, the weight of it all felt lighter. It had taken years to get here. Countless sleepless nights, borrowed office space, and mornings where I woke up with keyboard marks pressed into my face. Now my startup's value has made national news. People were finally paying attention. Investors kept calling with new opportunities. For the first time in forever, I felt like the world actually saw what I'd built. But my family had always seen something different. My dad, Richard, loved reminding me that real business meant property and buildings, not apps and websites he called toys. My mom, Patricia, always acted like my work was just a hobby I'd grow out of eventually. Kevin talked down to me like he was sharing ancient wisdom from some mountain he'd never actually climbed. And Tyler mostly recorded himself doing nothing and expected the world to celebrate him for existing. So when that message arrived, family dinner at 6 p.m., need to discuss something urgent, I knew it had nothing to do with me. Not really. It never did. Still, part of me hesitated. A tiny piece that remembered being 20, standing in a cramped apartment, holding a worn business textbook while waiting for a good luck call that never came. A piece that remembered sleeping in my car because rent was due and my parents said hardship builds character. A piece that wondered, even after all the success and recognition, if showing up one more time might finally change everything between us. But hope can become a dangerous habit when you keep feeding it to people who never deserved it. I closed my laptop and grabbed my jacket, the plain one I wore to family events because fitting in was easier than explaining myself. The luxury car stayed parked in my building's garage, untouched. Instead, I took my old Honda with the faded paint and the broken radio, the car my family recognized. Looking humble kept them comfortable. Comfortable people make stupid mistakes. During the drive across town, memories kept surfacing like bubbles from something deep underwater. Each one reminded me exactly where I stood in this family. The graduations they skipped, the holidays where they barely looked up, the way their attention always shifted to whoever impressed them most that week. The way I learned to make myself smaller so their disappointment wouldn't feel so crushing. But tonight felt different. Tonight I wasn't walking in hoping they'd finally see me. I was walking in knowing exactly who they were. The restaurant sat on the edge of downtown, lit up like it was trying too hard to prove something to people who didn't care. I parked behind a row of expensive cars, sleek models in colors that probably cost more than most people's yearly salary. My Honda groaned when I shut the door, and I let my hand rest on the roof for a moment, steadying myself. This place always felt like neutral ground before, but tonight it felt like a stage built for a play where I already knew every line. Inside, the marble floors made every footstep echo. The air smelled like lemon cleaner and old wealth, a scent that brought back childhood events where I stood at the edge of conversations nobody invited me into. A young server nodded at me, then glanced past my shoulder like he expected someone more impressive to appear behind me. I kept walking toward the private room. I heard their voices before I saw them. Laughter that rose too fast, too practiced, the kind that fills empty space instead of expressing real happiness. When I pushed open the door, they all turned at once, caught in the middle of their performance. My dad stood first, smile stretched wide, arms opening like I'd just returned from a war zone. "Emma, finally." My mom followed, kissing my cheek before immediately stepping back with concern painted across her face. You look exhausted. Are you eating properly? Kevin smirked from his chair, swirling red wine in his glass. Tyler barely glanced up from his phone. If you're enjoying this story, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps us keep bringing you content like this. I took a seat, one chair separated from everyone else, like they'd planned the arrangement beforehand. Maybe they had. The conversation started with typical family surface talk, thin and polished, so rehearsed it felt like getting stabbed with a spoon. They asked about my little business, my busy schedule, all with tones suggesting they were just being polite. I nodded, answered carefully, let them perform whatever version of themselves they thought would work on me. Then Kevin leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing just slightly. So your name made the headlines today, he said. His voice carried some admiration, but mostly calculation. My dad jumped in quickly. Yes, quite the attention you're getting. Must feel exciting. Exciting, said the same way someone might say inconvenient. That's when it shifted. The subtle change in the atmosphere, the moment their masks started slipping. My mom exchanged a quick glance with Richard, and Victor cleared his throat the way he always did before pitching something. I felt it immediately, that tightening in my chest, the instinct developed over years of walking into traps disguised as family gatherings. My dad leaned forward, pressing his fingertips together carefully. We actually wanted to talk about something important tonight, Emma. There it was. The real reason they'd summoned me here. The beginning of everything unraveling. My dad didn't waste a single second. The moment those words left his mouth, something important, the entire room transformed. The warmth drained from the lighting, all conversation died instantly, and every face turned toward me with identical hunger in their eyes. I'd seen that expression before, not on family, but on investors who showed up to strip companies for parts. Victor cleared his throat like he was starting a presentation. As you probably know, he began, smoothing the front of his expensive suit, the hotel business has been facing some challenges lately. He wrapped the word challenges in silk, like saying it prettier would hide the disaster underneath. Richard jumped in before I could respond. We're on the edge of something major, he said. Complete renovation of our main property, new spa facilities, upgraded rooms, proper conference space, everything. I blinked slowly, processing. Their main property was basically held together with hope and outdated plumbing. Kevin leaned forward, confidence dripping from every word. This could define our legacy, Emma. The kind of lasting investment your internet thing just can't compare to. Internet thing. Adorable. My mom reached over, placing her hand on my arm with trembling fingers that felt rehearsed. Sweetheart, this is a chance to be part of the family's future, to contribute. We supported you for so long. It feels right that you help now. Right. Of course she'd frame it that way. Everyone stared at me now, waiting for the version of Emma they'd always known. The quiet one, the eager one, the daughter desperate for their approval. Richard leaned closer, voice dropping to business mode. We need a temporary loan, just $1.2 million. You have access to credit now, connections, resources. He said resources like it was a faucet I could turn on whenever they wanted water. We'll obviously pay you back with interest, Victor added quickly, once the construction financing comes through. This is your opportunity to invest in the family's empire. Empire. I almost laughed out loud. But I stayed completely still, watching the nervous sweat forming on my dad's forehead, Victor's restless fingers on his wine glass, Kevin's forced smile. Tyler finally looking up from his phone, attempting a supportive expression he hadn't earned the right to give. There was a time I would have collapsed under all this pressure, a time when my family's acceptance felt like oxygen itself. A time when I confused their need for actual love. But I wasn't starving for their approval anymore, and I definitely wasn't theirs to use. I placed my napkin on the table, smoothing the fabric with slow, deliberate movements. So, I said, my voice perfectly steady, you all skipped the most important day of my entire life. But you're here for this. Nobody spoke. The silence felt thick enough to touch, pressing against my skin like humidity. My dad's jaw tightened visibly. Don't be dramatic, Emma. This is about family. Family. The word landed between us like a rock dropping into still water. I met his eyes, calm and completely unflinching. I didn't come here to save an empire you already destroyed, I said quietly. My mom actually gasped. Victor went rigid in his seat. Kevin's confident smile cracked right down the middle. And somewhere deep inside me, something locked permanently into place. A quiet, unshakable understanding. They thought they were trapping me in a corner, but really they just opened the exact door I needed. Before you go, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We've got more stories like this coming your way. The room stopped breathing after those words left my mouth. For several seconds, it felt like even the air conditioning knew better than to make noise. Richard leaned back slowly, all the fake warmth draining from his expression like water from a broken dam. So that's your position, he said. You're actually going to sit here and lecture us about sacrifice and commitment. Kevin scoffed, shaking his head in disbelief. She gets a little internet fame and suddenly thinks she's above the family. My mom dabbed at her eyes with a napkin that didn't have any tears on it yet. We're trying to include you, Emma. Don't twist this into something ugly. Something ugly. If only they could see themselves the way I saw them right now. Victor folded his hands together, adopting that patient, talking down tone he used with nervous clients. Let's not make this bigger than it needs to be. Look, Emma, 1.2 million is basically pocket change compared to what your company's worth. This is smart business for everyone involved. For everyone, I repeated slowly, letting each word hang in the air, tasting them for the lies they contained. Tell me, Victor, when exactly did you consider what was good for me? Was it the year I asked Dad for help with my first office lease, or when I applied for that startup program and you called it a hobby pretending to be ambition? He stiffened noticeably. I was trying to guide you toward realistic expectations. No, I said, voice quiet but sharp as broken glass. You were trying to keep me in the box you built around me. But I stopped fitting in that box years ago. Richard's fist tightened around his wineglass stem. We didn't invite you here to dig up ancient history, he said firmly. We came to build something real, something that lasts beyond quarterly reports. Something lasting, I echoed back. Like the hotel roof that keeps leaking every winter, or the broken heating at the downtown location, or the contractor bills you haven't paid in 6 months. Complete silence cracked through the entire room like lightning. My mom's face went completely pale. Kevin straightened up fast in his chair. Victor's eyes narrowed into suspicious slits. Richard blinked several times. How would you possibly know any of that? I finished his thought for him. Because I pay attention to everything. I always have. You just never paid any attention to me. Tyler, surprisingly quiet until this exact moment, finally put his phone face down on the table. Emma, what exactly are you saying right now? I looked at him, then slowly back to each of them. That you're not actually looking for an investor. You're looking for someone to save you from drowning. Victor's polite mask completely slipped away. That's an outrageous accusation with no basis in reality. I reached calmly for my bag, moving with slow precision, like someone unwrapping a truth they'd been waiting years to expose. I came tonight because I wanted to hear what story you'd tell me. And honestly, you didn't disappoint at all. Same script, same guilt tactics, same entitlement. Kevin leaned forward aggressively. Stop being so dramatic about everything. If Dad says the properties are fine, then they're obviously fine. Are they really? I asked. I placed a plain folder on the table between us, unmarked but noticeably heavy. I showed up tonight with the one thing none of you expected, I said quietly. The actual truth. Richard's eyes narrowed dangerously. What is that supposed to be? But before anyone could answer, the door opened smoothly. Maya stepped inside with her usual precision. Pressed blazer, perfect posture, eyes that noticed absolutely everything. But tonight there was something different in the way she carried herself. Pure purpose. She walked directly to me, completely ignoring the shocked expressions around the table. Everything's been finalized, she said clearly. The transfer went through this afternoon. My dad stood up so violently his chair scraped loudly against the floor. Transfer. What transfer are you talking about? Maya placed a thick stack of official documents directly in front of me. I slid them smoothly across the table toward him. Your hotel business, I said calmly. Your outstanding debts, your unpaid contractors, your property obligations. All of it. Victor's voice actually cracked. That's completely impossible. The bank hasn't. The bank sold everything, Maya cut in, her tone perfectly even. Last Tuesday. To a private investment company. Richard's face crumpled in total confusion. What company? What are you talking about? I met his eyes directly. Mine. The room didn't explode with sound. It imploded into absolute silence, like all the air got sucked out at once. My dad's mouth opened and closed repeatedly, like his brain couldn't form words fast enough to process what he'd just heard. Kevin shoved his chair back, shaking his head in denial. Tyler whispered something under his breath that sounded like either a prayer or a curse. My mom finally found her voice. Emma, what have you done to us? What you forced me to do, I replied simply. You wanted me to invest in an empire. But there is no empire anymore. There's only debt piled so high that no responsible bank would touch you with someone else's money. Victor grabbed one of the documents and scanned it frantically. His face completely drained of color as the numbers stared back at him. Months of overdue payments, angry contractor complaints, city code violations, maintenance records ignored until they became safety hazards. This can't possibly be accurate, he whispered. This isn't fixable. It absolutely is, I corrected him gently. Just not by any of you. Richard finally found his voice, thick and choked with pure rage. You think you can humiliate me like this in front of my own family? You think because you made some money you can play God with our lives? I leaned forward slightly. I'm not playing anything at all. I'm cleaning up the disaster you created, and I'm completely done financing the fantasy that you're still in control of anything. Kevin exploded across the table. You blindsided us. You should have warned us this was coming. Warned you about what? I asked calmly. That I wasn't going to write you a blank check? That I wasn't going to be your emergency rescue plan? My mom tried again, real tears finally appearing. Emma, please understand. This is our entire life, our home, everything we built. And it will continue existing, I said softly but firmly. Just not under your management anymore. Maya slid one final envelope smoothly across the polished table. My buyout offer. $150,000, clean and simple, enough for them to start completely over somewhere else. More than their remaining equity was actually worth. More than they honestly deserved from me. Richard stared at it like it might explode in his face. I'm not accepting your pity money like some charity case. It's not pity at all, I said. It's severance pay for a job you stopped doing years ago. He slammed his hand down hard on the table, making glasses rattle. You are no daughter of mine anymore. For the first time in my entire life, those words didn't land like a knife in my chest. They landed like freedom, like chains breaking. I stood up slowly, smoothing my jacket with careful hands. You're absolutely right, I said. I'm not the daughter you wanted me to be. I'm the daughter you created by ignoring me. Kevin demanded immediate explanations. Victor muttered frantically about legal action and lawyers. Tyler swore quietly under his breath, finally understanding. But my dad just stared at those documents, watching his entire world collapse as he realized this wasn't something he could negotiate his way out of. I stepped back from the table, letting all their noise swirl uselessly around me like smoke. They were falling apart exactly as I knew they would, grasping at anything, blaming everyone, shouting desperately into the void. Maya opened the door and held it for me professionally. Before leaving, I looked at them one final time. Not with anger burning in my chest, not with victory, just with absolute certainty about what came next. I didn't come here tonight to save your empire, I said clearly. I came to end my part in it forever. And then I walked straight out into the cool night air, leaving all their chaos and panic behind me like smoke clearing. The night air felt like hitting a reset button on everything. Cool, steady, brutally honest. Behind me, muffled chaos continued inside, voices overlapping in blame and desperation. But out here under the stars, everything felt quiet, clean, completely real. Maya walked beside me toward the parking area, her heels clicking a calm, steady rhythm against pavement. "You absolutely sure you're okay?" she asked. Not worried, just genuinely checking. I nodded, and for the first time in years, my answer wasn't a performance for anyone. "I'm better than okay," I said honestly. I finally stopped hoping they'd become people they were never capable of being. My old Honda sat in the corner of the lot, but tonight I didn't need that disguise anymore. Maya handed me the keys to my actual car, sleek, dark, completely mine. "You don't have to hide who you are anymore," she said simply. I unlocked the door and felt something incredibly heavy lift off my shoulders. Some mixture of expectation, guilt, and old habits that had weighed me down for over a decade. I sat behind the wheel, breathing in the silence around me. No missed calls demanding explanations, no guilt trips, no desperate bargaining. My phone buzzed exactly once. My mother's number lighting up the screen. I watched it glow bright, flicker, then fade to black. I didn't answer it, didn't even think about answering. I blocked the number completely, letting it vanish the same way their version of me finally had. As I pulled onto the main highway, the city stretched ahead of me, lights blinking like tiny invitations to a completely different life. Not one built around rescuing people who never intended to show up for me when I actually needed them. For the first time in my adult life, the future didn't look scary or overwhelming. It looked wide open, and I was completely free to walk into it without asking anyone's permission. They always told me family was forever. But sometimes forever is just how long you allow people to keep hurting you. Share this video if you've ever had to choose yourself over people who kept taking. Walking away from that restaurant, I understood something simple and sharp. Love isn't measured by blood relations. It's measured by how people actually show up for you when it matters. And mine only showed up when they smelled opportunity. So if you've ever had to choose yourself over people who kept draining you, understand this clearly. You're not being selfish. You're surviving. And sometimes survival means walking away from the people who taught you that you didn't matter.